it's quite a crowd today.
Yeah, so that's great because we have a full agenda. So I think we should just immediately get started as we have enough people. For all the new joiners, welcome. It's so great that you're all here. This is the weekly format where everyone can book time to talk about their UX work. Whether you're implementing something or whether you're designing something, it doesn't really matter. Show what you're working on and get feedback. We also have a notes doc where the agenda also lives. And what's important about this meeting is that everyone should and can help take notes. So please don't leave us hanging. It's really hard to follow and contribute while also taking notes. So we nominate 2 note-taking champions every time who encourage everyone else to help take notes, but they're not the only one taking notes. Who wants to be a note-taking champion today? You get lots of fame and love for it.
I can help out.
Very nice. Thank you, Nico. Anyone else?
I'll jump into that as well.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right into the agenda. I will be time boxing today because we are tight on time. I will just send chat messages when it's getting close, and I will ruthlessly interrupt you if you're over time, so be prepared. Our first point on the agenda is students' project presentation of 30 minutes. It's just one project, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, very
just
well.
Basically, it's one feature from one project.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I have to time box just for one thing and not for multiple. All right, then the stage is yours. You have 30 minutes.
If I may just give a quick context before Justina presents. Just wanted to say, great that time timer is back. So this is what Justina will present. Is a student project for UX and product design postgraduate program. And what they do, they go through a whole design loop with a project. And Grafana was a partner. Justina will give you an introduction to what kind of use case we're talking about for this specific project. And they were encouraged to use as much as possible of what's in Grafana already. But if it's like not enough or something can be done better, as we know, tons of stuff, then they can feel free to come up with new ideas and solutions for that. There will be probably a lot of comments regarding feasibility. And we're well aware that some of this stuff is maybe not yet possible in Grafana, but please remember that this is a student project and they will graduate in January, and they're looking for kind of very specific feedback, but all kinds of feedback is welcome. Also, apart from that, wow, are we 20 people today? And before we start, just one question, because last time we did it at the very end, we are recording those meetings as always, but our last feedback session was posted on YouTube. And if that will be okay with everyone, we would like to post this as well. And I will reach out to you, or if you feel like you don't want this to be posted for some reason, just let me know, okay? And then we will not do that. It's fine with everyone. Some nodding heads, yep, thumbs up, cool. All right, yeah, stage is yours now.
Thank you. So I'll share my screen. So here we have some words of introduction to this project. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So we are Blackbox. Our students group is named Blackbox, as well as our project. This is a Grafana app or a plugin for Grafana based on Grafana solution. addressed to facility managers who manage whole buildings, building complexes, or rented spaces, for example, several floors in an office building. And this solution, by this solution, we want to give them direct data view from data gathered by BMS, which is Building Management System, in an intelligent building. We want to give them convenient data analysis and convenient data sharing. And today, what I'm going to show you is our idea on the feature called anomaly detection and forecast, which is basically an advanced alerting based on artificial intelligence. By default, the anomaly detection uses only historical data from the building, and so it could predict the normal range of the values. To compare this range with the data we actually saw in a building, and so that we could identify anomalies in real time. In our solution, user can also create a set of custom rules so that machine learning could remodel data and create custom forecast, as we called it. So this is our Figma prototype. This is an example of a dashboard that facility manager could see. It isn't the main dashboard. It isn't the first dashboard he would see in the app, but one of the dashboards he could jump into to dig into data. So what's interesting for us, it's an energy consumption chart. And we can see that there was an alert on October 27th. We can see that energy consumption was much too high. So we go into energy consumption analyze. And here we start with anomaly detection feature. We can see the same chart which contains energy consumption. This blue line is a trend of energy consumption in a previous month. And the shaded blue is a typical range of this value calculated by machine learning. In the table below, we can see a list of anomalies that occurred during this period. We have just one anomaly, and we can read that the actual value of energy consumption was much too high. It exceeded the typical range. If we want further information, we can expand this row and read more information about this. And what facility manager would like to do right now, probably, is to compare this chart, this energy consumption, with other factors that occurs in the building. So we can go to compare to function and select a series which he wants to show on the graph. For example, number of occupants. We can see a number of occupants on the graph, and in the table below, we can see and we can compare values from that very same day. And here we have the actual number exceeded the typical one. So probably a facility manager can assume that the number of occupants was the reason of this anomaly. What he can do from this view is to go further to this month, and we can see that on this graph, the yellow line showed up. This is the forecast made by default anomaly detection, default machine learning that uses historical data. Here we have some quick summary of this whole period. He can go even further to the next month, and here we have only forecast. And one more thing he can do is to click here, forecast, he can show some information. He can read some information about how this anomaly detection and based on machine learning works right now. What are the default rules? And if he switches to custom, he can create a set of custom rules to remodel the forecast and create a custom forecast. For example, we can change occupancy in the building from 100% to a lower value and see what happens with the energy consumption. As well, we can change, for example, time which the anomaly detection is based on. By default, this is the whole history of the building, but he can switch it, for example, to use past 6 months for this calculation. We click Run Forecast, and we can see that a new line showed up, Energy Consumption Custom Forecast. What he can do right now is to compare these two graphs and see the summary of these two values. We can save custom forecasts from here, give it a name, and we will see it on the list. And if we want to, we can swap this forecast with default forecast on initial dashboard. If I check this and click Save, I can see that my default forecast, which was yellow before, was switched, was turned into orange one, which is custom forecast. And if we want to go back to the saved forecast, we can go in here. This would be forecast view, and we will store all the saved forecasts in here. And we can generate again, or star it, delete it, or and so on. So basically, this was this is the whole concept, our idea on how anomaly detection could work in our project. Thank you.
Woo.
I really enjoyed this, very interesting. I really like how clear your dashboards are designed. They're very compact and on point. So it's very easy for me to understand what's going on, and I know where to look. I have some visual feedback in this dashboard that you're presenting right now for the consumption and the cost. I think it's a very interesting idea to show the forecast as the borders around the bar chart, but I feel like the differences, like if it's just like a very tiny difference between your forecast and the actual number, it's really hard to tell, like, is there a pixel of difference, or is it just fill? Like, is the blue bar bigger? How much bigger is it? So, like, I'm not sure I would do it this way. Maybe it would be easier to just have two bars next to each other to be able to compare, or I'm not sure whether you have explored using other visualization types, maybe just use two line graphs instead of the bars. I don't know, just spitballing, but that's something that I would maybe consider changing just to make it a bit easier to tell like where the forecast is different.
Thank you,
yeah,
for your feedback. It's actually our pain point, and we were discussing this graph a lot. So maybe we just get back to our previous version where we show on just two graphs for forecast and also for actual energy consumption. Thank you.
Okay.
It's like with this video that David shared, because it's like kind of a sort of a stacked graph, right? Anyways, and that's always hard to read. So yeah.
Okay.
I have one other small thing. You had the anomalies area, and there you were using red on black. So
Yep,
that was a
this is
different
one
dashboard.
different dashboard. Justina, can you just please go to anomaly detection? Yep.
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
clear?
I think for the icon, it sort of works a little better, but especially the text there. Like, I am a normally sighted person. I'm not colorblind, but I already have trouble reading the text because like the contrast is not so big and the text is kind of
Okay.
thin. And
Okay.
colorblind people, there's a certain kind of colorblindness where people have trouble seeing red on black. So maybe it would be better to use a lighter color. Maybe, I don't know. Material design
Also-
uses this sort of pink, or you could try orange, just maybe in the dark theme, use something that's not red.
Is it
Sure.
time to mention Dominic's pink?
Ah,
We have
Yeah,
a special.
Dominic pink is a classic color.
Yeah.
I confirm it's a classic. I
Kind
already
of
got a
like-
t-shirt in that color.
So, okay, we will change it also.
Nico,
But,
you were about to say?
Yeah, I have a
So,
question.
I-
So
just had a really quick bit of feedback. I really liked the modal text that popped up in the forecast when you clicked that button. It was very clear, and as a new user of this tool, I could see that that would be very helpful to me to learn how to use this. Also, great labels in your UI. So, and this whole thing kind of tells a good story. You know, a dashboard should tell a story, and you guys did a good job with that. So, kudos to you there. Anyway, please continue, Nikolai.
Thank you.
my thing was actually a little bit also surprised that if I got it correctly, I have to select the data of the occupants, and I have to figure out that it's because of the number of occupants that it spiked, or can it also do it by itself? Like if it has this intelligence behind it.
If I understand you correctly, we already have the number of occupants in our historical data, which we gathered in our video management system. So here we have this number of occupants, and facility manager should only base his decision on this trend. He can be supported, but by these two lines. The blue one is for energy consumption, and the green one for number of occupants. And if he follows this trend, he can say that also based on anomaly detection, when the number of occupants go up, also it was anomaly for energy consumption.
Mm-hmm.
I
So-
think what Nico, yeah, sorry.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is I have to figure out that the energy consumption went up because of the amount of occupants come up, or would the system give me an indicator that, hey, your energy consumption went up because the amount of occupants were higher than normal?
So here, the only one place we show it, it's in the table. So you can see that unexpected high value for number of occupants means the same for energy consumption. And we assume that this is enough for facility manager to go further with his analysis.
Well, I think that the problem is we can't be 100% sure that this factor is the one that causes energy consumption anomaly. We can just give him a chance to compare these factors, but even with machine learning, we aren't able to tell that this is the cause. This is a part that a facility manager should do by himself.
Based on his own experience and his own knowledge of smart building.
So, okay. So if I understand correctly, apart from number of occupants, what you can also have here is, for instance, the temperature outside. So when it gets colder, the energy consumption goes up because the heating goes up and such, right? So there will be a number of factors that you will consider. The other thing, actually, Nico had a good idea. I mean, what if this person, this facility manager, could, when he gets notified that there was an anomaly in energy consumption, and he can look at this different data and somehow manually teach the algorithm that, okay, in this case, it was number of occupants. Other case, it was, I don't know, drop in temperature or whatever. So it's not, so you kind of show the system how to interpret data. It makes sense. I need someone technical to weigh in on this crazy idea.
Okay, so technical person in our team is Justyna, but just...
I mean, we have a ton of Grafanistas here who I'm pretty sure can also...
So, okay, just from our side, we were thinking about adding some annotations where just to gather them and for facility manager, make it easier to get back to historical data and show and look up into this historical annotations where he wrote the cause of these anomalies, but I don't know if facility manager can teach this algorithm by himself.
Anyone?
Torkel?
Oh yeah, there's Torkel.
I have
You
an
there?
idea. I think instead of more like an algorithm, you could just have some sort of form where you could set thresholds. You could say, you know, if the temperature is some percentage over what it should be around this date based on where it usually is, around this time of day or time of year, then you could like set an alert or create an annotation or something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Would it maybe be done simpler? So right now the green graph is showing occupants, and it doesn't really mirror what you're showing. That typical is 80 and it exploded up to 160. So it should almost be double as tall. But maybe if the graph is red in those areas where it went above the abnormal rate or something like that.
Torkel.
Yeah, I don't have that much to add here, but I need to drop off.
All right. Yeah, Jess is saying not red on black though. Big accessibility, no. Yeah. Right. Any other comments on the whole workflow or how anomaly detection works here?
Maybe, sorry.
I think for the KPIs, I like how you've put them to the side. A lot of people put KPIs up at the top and then the graph, but I feel like they're actually almost secondary. So I like that you have them on the right side. I'm wondering if you could use some sort of visual treatment like color or like an up and down arrow to show if it's like expected or not. Like if it is a concerning number or if it's normal and you shouldn't have to pay attention to it. You could use color or another visual indicator to show that.
Okay. Thank you.
Dominic is asking, was there even any red in that graph? Welcome to my world. No, Dominic, there was not. All right. Cool. Any last comments?
And thanks for presenting this, guys. This was very interesting. One question I did have that you might want to think about for the next time or when you write up conclusions or whatever is, what am I trying as a facility manager? It's like, okay, good to know anomalies, but why do I want to know the anomalies? What is my goal? It's like, okay, I know an anomaly, so close that loop. Tell me what the next step is. How is this? I mean, am I trying to save money? Am I trying to, just understand more what's going on in the building? So just to, can make it, give me a more concrete conclusion as a theoretical building manager to how this helps me. So how does seeing an anomaly help me? Does it help me meet my budget? Does it make my life easier? Does it save me time? Um, just a thought there.
Like, why should I care?
Exactly. What's in
Yeah.
it for me?
In most cases, we know that facility managers would like to know it because they care about financial planning, and they are interested in how the building performs because of the money, basically. So if he has an invoice that was much higher than the typical one, he wants to know why this invoice was so high, and so that he could explain it to the boss and check out if maybe something is broken, or maybe one Saturday there was an event in a building, so this is actually an explanation of the higher invoice in this month. So what the facility manager is trying to do here is to rather investigate the past, not to prevent the future behavior of the building, because he or she doesn't actually have such impact on the building. He or she couldn't change the parameters in the building because this is a technical part, which is technical people stuff. So the facility manager would rather investigate the past and the causes of costs in a building.
Okay, cool.
All right. We're almost at time. So, oh no. So I guess.
Excellent timekeeper, puppy dog.
Yeah, I trained him whole weekend for that. Yeah, on that note. Yeah, so Justina, Hania, if you want to hang and see how the rest of the feedback session looks here, you can just stay. Sorry. Yeah, just.
Thank you all for your feedback.
Thank you.
And I do hope you guys hang out because you are kind of the definition of fresh eyes. So, and that's very valuable.
Oh yeah,
feedback
and if you have
for
feedback,
us.
then sure.
All right, thank you so much. The next person on the agenda is Tomas, who will talk to us about form validation modes. You have 15 minutes, Tomas.
All right, let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yep, we can see it. Grafana Cloud Alerting.
Awesome. So we had a discussion in Cloud Frontend Squad about form validation modes. We wanted to standardize our approach a little bit because we found out that we do it quite differently in different plugins based on the preferences of whoever is developing it. But we failed to reach some consensus. We wanted to ask your opinions. Now, front-end validation mode is basically a trigger on which a form is validated and errors are shown to the user if there are any. And there are some choices for this. So the form library that we use by default has a validation mode where it will first validate the form only when submit is clicked, but after submit button has been clicked once, it will validate on every change, basically on every keystroke. So I have a small demo here, like how this works. So let's say you're entering YAML and you make a syntax error. So it will not tell you anything until you click save. Then you get an error. And after that, on every keystroke, it will show it again. Now, some say they would prefer to have it always on change, meaning right from the start, when you're typing something in, you will be immediately shown errors. However, this can be a bit distracting because it will give some false positives, meaning not that you made a mistake, but you just didn't finish typing in the value or filling in everything in the form, and it will immediately be read out. And other options are on blur, so that it will not yell at you immediately, but if you click somewhere else, move on to a different form, then it will say that you have an error in this field. So I wanted to ask your opinions, if maybe there's already some sort of standard set that we couldn't find, or you have some thoughts on what is the best way to approach it in general.
I would say I'm personally a big fan of, like, if I enter like a new name or something from our organization, it will automatically just save the change, like Google Docs. But right now in the settings, like let's say you change the organization name, you have to click save before anything happens and you get an error code. And it seems like that is the pattern across Grafana at the moment, that you have to click save or test or something before something happens.
Yeah.
All right, so that makes sense. I guess it's because we all use the same form library, for which this is just the default. So like saving immediately on input is quite often not technically possible, as when you're creating a new thing, you need to enter all of the fields before we can actually persist anything.
Thomas, with this validation mode and revalidation mode, they are just for the purpose of this feedback session. They will not be there, right?
Yes, correct. I just added these knobs for demo purposes.
Okay. So validation mode, you can you show once again those options? This is on submit, on touch, and blur.
So on touched is on blur, and after the first blur on change.
Yeah, I would say that the thing that gets us the closest to not having a very disruptive flow is to have it on blur and then on change, just on others. I don't know what you think, but actually if we could do that before hitting save, giving them this config can be quite a lot of code, right?
Yes, so it can take a while. They can add more stuff here and so on.
Yeah, then clicking save every time just to check what works and what doesn't work, that can be cumbersome.
But this is also solved by default. Also solved by default, that switches to on change after the first click.
Yeah.
So would you prefer then the before clicking save to be on blur?
Yeah, it's not really. Yeah, I don't think it's whether what. We can't hear you anymore.
Question, is this like, similar to putting in like your wrong email address, or is it the same as when we have, I think when you set up like a new database, you can like click test?
This is more about, like syntax error, wrong email address, or maybe some duplicate fields, things that you can validate immediately. there are things that are sort of like test, but there you have no choice most of the time except to click on save, because you need to make a request to backend to test it. So you cannot do it on every keystroke.
I guess then what Diana is saying on blur kind of makes sense, because then it's like I typed in my email address and it tells me like, hey, you're missing the ed or .com, and it can see that. So that seems to make sense. One question I have, like, what happens if this error code is super long, like, and this error message just explodes? Because I have scenarios where I click the test button and the arrow just exploded and took off the whole screen.
That's exactly what happens. So I would say that I make a best effort to anticipate what errors there can be, and if it's big, to parse out the salient part of it and show to the user. But I guess you can't always even reliably predict on what will be returned by the backend.
Yeah, I mean, whole error thing is an issue for a very long time. How to handle those big ones.
So Nico, for the error message overflowing the container, I think we've actually fixed that on on the Grafana. So if you try to replicate that same error, I don't think you're gonna find it any longer. So it's been fixed already.
Question: does this error also shows up in the like the super long one view, for example? Does it also show up in like if I go Control Option Command I and like the developer window on my browser?
That's quite tricky. So I don't really know about this particular use case, but for the issue you raised on the GitHub relating to the that's like for the data sources, the error message on the data sources, it was fixed yesterday. So, and I believe it should also reflect on other parts of Grafana as well. So that's my assumption.
Super cool.
All right, so the recommendation would be on blur, and after first submit on change.
And one quick thought, someone had said that the error message was distracting. If it's up there persistently, and it definitely does grab a lot of attention. Just a thought, can we tone down the appearance of that error message if it is going to be large or it's going to be continuously on screen, like just have a red accent or something, but keep the message itself
or
a little bit quieter.
Or make it dismissible.
That's interesting, yeah. Or you can just have a short version and just expand collapse the, like error details or something. The one thing I'm a bit afraid of is that we're diving into the topic of error handling that is relevant across Grafana. And if we now create something very specific for this particular form, we will get yet another type of error handling, adding to the complexity of everything we have. I don't know, Jess, you're like most up to date with the design system.
Yeah, so far I think like we're still using this type of validation design where it's kind of like a tooltip that just pushes the content down. But I think the way we're intending to use it is not to show like huge error messages. It should be compact if we use it in this style. So if that's a use case that we need to show very big, extensive error messages, then maybe we just need a different design for the validation message.
Also, to play devil's advocate here, so this is Grafana Cloud, not Grafana on-prem, and they've been trying to differentiate, cloud folks have been trying to differentiate themselves from Grafana on-prem. So if there is some difference here, that would be more acceptable than in, Grafana as a whole, because this particular subsection is Grafana Cloud. However, we're, as has been pointed out, getting away from form validation. So
Yes.
So for this, we do not want to have different form validation than core Grafana. That's not the plan in Grafana Cloud.
Yeah, so far we're trying we are using the same UI components as the core Grafana, and we're aiming toward the same look and feel. So here we're doing nothing special towards how we showed this error. We're just using the standard component that is, I think, used across the core. So any changes to the core component library would be reflected in how errors are shown here. Yeah, so my original question was specifically about this validation mode.
So I think there's an agreement like on blur and then on change. Right?
Awesome. That's what I want.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Cool. All right, awesome. We're ahead of time. That's amazing.
That's
I think it's a first.
I think so. Like, I mean, it has happened before, but not in a long time. Yeah, I will
not
just
with 20 people.
Yeah, very true. I will just be using the remainder of the time then. I want to give you a quick demo of the reusable panels project and the status quo of the design. However, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to have a big discussion around this because it's a big feature, but we don't have that much time. So my plan is to just demo the status quo, and then maybe if we have a couple of minutes left, you can give some feedback, but please do add your feedback to the doc, or if you're interested in talking to me about it more, then we can schedule a different call, or you can send me a Slack message. Yeah, just want to show you what the status is so that you can get involved and know that there is the opportunity to give feedback. All right, so let me share my screen.
Is this slated for 8.0?
Yes, and actually we want to release it behind a feature flag even earlier than that, I think 7.4. So this is about being able to set some panels to reuse them.
Oh, God.
So that means that in the future, you will have the opportunity to pick a panel from a dashboard that you really like and just implement that same panel in your own dashboard. And if someone changes that panel, the changes will reflect in all the places where this panel is being used. And of course, as a user, there's a lot of different ways to potentially use those panels or tweak those panels. So we basically have a user flow here. And before we get into that flow, just one quick note. So in an ideal world scenario, I would really like these reusable panels to have a graph preview so that it's easier for the user to understand, this was that panel, or that's what that panel is doing. But for the MVP, we will probably just use text-based previews, just because it's technically difficult to generate these preview images, and that's something that we still have to technically solve. But later, maybe we will have images as well. So there's basically two entry points. Either you're creating a dashboard and want to throw in a new panel and you want to reuse something that's already there instead of creating a panel from scratch. So one idea is to change the add panel view. I'm not sure whether you remember how it currently looks, but currently basically this is an empty box where you just have a button to add a panel and another button to add a row. And what we have imagined in the team is to make this more like a template picker, like in, I don't know, PowerPoint or word processor, where you can add an empty panel or also use popular panels that are already existing, and then you can search the library or filter. And then, for example, if you pick this pre-existing reusable panel, then there is the question, does this panel use template variables? Because the problem is that probably these template variables that this panel is using are not yet in your current dashboard. So there's a model that says this panel expects these template variables, Grafana will import them, is that okay? And you can say, yes, I want to import this, or no, I don't want to do this after all. And if you click yes, then you get this reusable panel here, and there is just an icon as a visual indicator that it's not a regular panel, but a reusable panel. This icon is more of a placeholder, so this is not final, but roughly this sort of design is what we are aiming for. And then the context menu is basically the same as with any other panel. So if you see a reusable panel in a dashboard and you like it, you could via more and copy, just copy it to your own panel. And that way you could sort of create this infinite chain of reusable panels. And then you also have the option to edit the reusable panel, of course. So we contemplated whether the reusable panel should have a different editing environment, because of course, changing a reusable panel that is implemented in potentially hundreds of places could have big consequences, right? So in order to keep the interface simple and clear to the user, it will be kind of similar to the current panel edit. We're thinking to have a different header that says clearly you're editing a reusable panel right now. And then the options in the top here change slightly. So for reusable panels, we don't want to do the save and back to dashboard flow that we usually have, because if you want to edit a reusable panel, the changes should be saved immediately and updated everywhere. You will also have the option to unlink your reusable panel in order to tweak it without changing all the other instances. And then we want to add a little bit of panel metadata. So on how many dashboards is this used? Who edited this panel last? We were thinking about showing the associated template variables, but it seems that it's technically difficult. And also our ideal customer who we showed this to said it's not that important of an information. So maybe we can skip the template variables here. But we also want to add tagging for the reusable panels so that it will be easier for the users to find the panel that they're looking for in potentially hundreds of panels. And of course, if you have better ideas how to manage those panels apart from tagging, that is also appreciated. So for unlinking, that's quite simple. You just get a modal, like, are you really sure? You cannot like merge it back, and then you can say yes or no. And if you want to update, this is a bit tricky. So the current plan is you get a modal that says how many dashboards your change will affect. And then we just want to list the dashboards. And like currently we're thinking maybe just sorting by last edited. The customer also suggested that maybe view count could be an interesting metric to just show like where might these changes have the biggest impact, like what do I want to watch out for? Because if I have hundreds of dashboards here, then probably I don't want to go through the list, but maybe if I know my top dashboards, I can at least search for them. But this is tricky. Like if you have a good idea how we can show, like these are the places where you should look at because there the change might be breaking or problematic, like that would be great. We haven't fully solved this yet. Yeah, so that's that. And then if you have unlinked your panel, of course, you would have just a normal panel. And then for normal panels, we want to add this option to make it reusable. So there you immediately go to and add this panel to the library flow that I still have to design, that's still missing. But if you go to the panel edit mode for a normal panel in the future, you will have a panel library in the bottom of your side pane. So there you also can directly add this panel to the library or replace the current panel by a pre-existing reusable panel. So that's also something that you can do. And of course, in the reusable panel edit mode, you will also have the panel library and see like you're currently using this panel, and then it will get highlighted. That's also still missing. There we have some alternative explorations that are not as important. And then the last thing that I can show you is if you want to access and manage your shared panels without being on a dashboard, because in the future, we want these shared panels to be accessible through the dashboard folder system and the search. So we have thought about whether we should show shared panels just in the folders with dashboards or not. And the problem is that currently the entire permissions management of Grafana is part of the folder management. So it seems really tricky to decouple shared panels from folders completely. So for now, we think it's easier to just leave the panels in with the folders. So basically we want to introduce just different types of content that can be in the Grafana folders. So we will have dashboards, and then additionally also the shared panels directly in the folder. You will have the same tags. In the future, you will also be able to filter by type. So if you just want to filter for dashboards, you can just remove the other stuff or like add filters here. I used a drop down with tags because I'm not sure how many different types of content we might introduce in the future, because alerts might be part of that. I'm not sure whether they will be in the folders, maybe not, but theoretically we could have more. So I'm thinking this probably scales well. And then in the search, this is just a quick draft, of course, because I know that we will want to redesign the search. So maybe like we can do this even better. But for now, basically, I'm thinking just whatever term you search for will result in both dashboards and reusable panels. And then you get the call to actions either to add the panel to a dashboard or to edit the panel. Yes, so that's all I had. We even have some time left. I'm sorry, like I went a bit fast. I hope I didn't overwhelm you too much, but if you have any quick feedback that you really want to get out, like now is your time.
Yeah, two things that I was just writing up for the notes. For storing these, I suggest putting them in a different default folder that is not general, like have a new default reusable content or reused content or common content folder. And on the subject of visualization, you know, the thing that Hugo did that I believe is coming 7 up for that shows you kind of a visual map of where your template variables are and what the dependencies are. Perhaps something like that could be reused, because that's a thing that already exists, and so that's maybe we could.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I haven't considered that, but maybe that would be helpful. I will look into it. Thank you.
I just wanted to say it's absolutely awesome. I have a bunch of like smaller comments really that are like nitpicking, but I will just share it. If no one has bigger comments, I can share it now or later. All right, so small comments.
Jump on in, but by the way, also just since I didn't say it, I agree with Diana. This is amazing.
So when you say, I really love those icons for new empty panel and new row. I think they look awesome. Unless we already have those and I somehow missed that, but.
They're unicorns,
yeah.
So they're part of the library.
Yeah.
I picked them.
There is this option to copy reusable panel. Is very hidden under the submenu. So that is something I would consider, like if that's a reusable panel, this, I don't know, could be a very important option. And also, I have an impression that you can make a panel reusable once it's saved, and like all is done with the panel, you saved it, and only then you can decide, okay, make it reusable. Wouldn't make sense to also have a chance to start, like I know I'm creating a reusable panel because I'm this like big Grafana admin, and I know that
I need 10 teams to have this panel on their dashboards. So why not start there? And also, if we're starting with the description, those previews, right? They're like description based now. So maybe I would have a button to click the preview of the visualization. I mean, the whole, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole thing about those reusable panels, one of the reasons is that they have great visualizations also. And that, given my conversations with clients, could be one of the reasons why people want to copy this panel.
Thank you. Those are great points. I hope someone took notes because I was just listening. But there are some great suggestions here. Marcus also wrote something in the chat just now, which I think is a good idea. Awesome. I will explore all of that. Of course, feel free to add more comments into the doc or send me messages on Slack or whatever, you know how to reach me. But we're out of time, so I will stop sharing now.
Super. I might reach out to you. I have a couple of more, some more ideas. But
absolutely. That's great. Please do.
But it looks really nice. Awesome job.
Thank you. Happy to hear that. All right. So we're about to finish this feedback session. But as always, the last question of the session is, how can we make this session better in the future? Any suggestions?
I think we did exceptionally well today, given there was 22 people at one point. Yeah.
I agree that the note-taking went very well today. No one got called out for not taking enough notes. So